If you're interested in how to adjust valve clearance on a motorcycle with replaceable shims, or if you want to know more about the Kawasaki air suction emission control system, or if you just want to know more about how motorcycles work, then this video is for you. I'm really pleased with how the top end is looking. It looks almost brand new. This is the timing belt cover here. Let's take this off. Okay, now it's an important thing to know that the crankshaft goes around twice for every time the camshaft goes across. So we've got an F in the timing window, but look at this, there's no horizontal line here, and more importantly, I can't move the arms, and that's because they're under tension. We're at the top of the exhaust cycle, not the top of the compression cycle. So I'm going to turn it one more time around, and you watch what happens. We've got the F in the center now, and then I'm turning it. We got that one mark there. The rear, we're at the TDC for the rear. And now we should be getting close. I got the F in the window again. And now our target is to get these two lines horizontal. They look pretty good right there. And then let's see. Oh yeah, these things move. You see that? Put my hands in the way for you, but see that? Okay, I've got 0.13, 0.10, and 0.15. Let's try the 0.10. And it goes easily. 0.15 doesn't go. And 0.13 goes with a little bit of resistance. So I'm going to call that 0.14. Now on the back, let's try 0.13. Doesn't go. Let's try 0.10. Goes with a little bit of tension, 0.10. Okay, now my exhaust, it looks a little tight. This is a 0.18 millimeter feeler gauge. My target is 0.2 to 0.25, and the 0.2 won't fit. 0.18 barely fits. So we're a little tight on both exhaust valves, so we're going to have to use a slightly smaller shim. Let me show you this. This is edition number 1 of the dealer repair manual. I bought it in 1995 when I got the bike. Of course, the problem with paper service manuals is that you can't make changes or corrections. I've zoomed you in for a closer look. Here's the original exhaust valve table on 419, and you can see the target valve clearance at that time was 0.25 to 0.3. Now look at this. Here's the same exhaust valve table from a more recent official Kawasaki service manual published a few years later. I put a link to a source for a free copy of that more recent manual in the video description. The intake tables are identical in the two manuals, but look here, the exhaust target has been updated to 0.2 to 0.25. That's not a typo, it's repeated elsewhere in the manual as well. So evidently Kawasaki changed their mind. They made a revision. Okay, so this is the shim I took out. It's inscribed with a 3.5 on there. I'll zero my measuring device, and I get basically 2.35, 2.33. So I go down here 2.35, that's my thickness presently, and I'm a little under at 0.18, and so it says choose a shim that's 2.25. So let's go over to the shim set. So here's the shim set I have. And I go down the list, it goes up from right to left. 2.25 is right here, so I'll choose one of these. All right, now let's look at this air suction valve. It just lifts right out of there. Of course, this is a one-way valve, and you can see there's the reed right there. A little bit of carbon deposits. I might just clean that up with some brake clean. And then the valve, with negative suction, that valve opens. So this part here is just a brake to prevent it from opening too wide. Let me show you the air suction pathway inside the valve cover. The vacuum switch valve hooks up here. When manifold vacuum drops as the throttle is opened, that valve allows clean air from the air filter to be drawn along this pathway inside the valve covers to each reed valve. Pressure fluctuations inside the exhaust port cause tiny passive vibrations of each reed valve, smoothing out those pressure changes and sending tiny one-way puffs of clean air into the exhaust. A lot of guys get this confused with an EGR valve. This is an EGR valve in a car right here. And an EGR valve is similar in the sense that both are shut down during states of high vacuum, such as during engine idling. But that's where the similarity ends. In an EGR valve, air is actually sent the opposite way from the exhaust manifold back into the intake manifold to reduce the maximum temperature in the cylinder. It's really interesting to see the different technologies that work here, because even though air is going in the opposite direction, the effect is the same: reduce emissions. Okay, let's put the front valve cover back on. These washers have a metal side and a rubber side, and the metal side always goes up, like so. And a little squirt of dielectric grease to make sure it comes off easily the next time. There, that felt right. Now let's take the rear cover off. At this stage I had a little trouble because I hadn't loosened the wiring harness from its cable ties enough. The other thing that can give you problems here is the spark plug tube, which can accidentally be jostled upward to reduce clearance. If you're having trouble, push the spark plug tube down with your finger, move your wires and choke cable out of the way, and try again. Okay, now I've advanced. They say 305 degrees, which is ridiculous. You can't get it that accurate, and it's not necessary to get that accurate. But basically, turn the engine counterclockwise until you get the R, and then come up here. Make sure you're on the compression stroke rather than the exhaust stroke, and you see the two marks there. Interestingly, the intake valves are a little tight. This is the 0.06, and it goes here but barely. Okay, this shim has a 4.0 written on it, and it's 2.39 by my measurement. So we go, it's a 4.0 shim that we have, and we want to be, example is we're at 0.05, and so it says to go to 2.35. So let's get a shim that's slightly smaller. In this clip I'm using my meat hooks to slide the shim into place. I'm not happy with this technique. It's not easy. The shim has to go in exactly square or it won't fit. On the Cowie forums there are people who claim better success by holding the shim down with a smaller magnet. Then once they're happy it's in place, they sweep the magnet off with the rocker arm. My magnet was a little too strong and too bulky to do that reliably. However, I may try again with a smaller magnet, preferably one that can come in from the side to a tight space. For my own records, here's a summary of what I did this year. All right, it's a convenient time to check this air suction line now that we have it off, this valve. Now, this valve is controlled by vacuum, and when there's no vacuum, there should be a free exchange of air from the air intake here to the two-cylinder exhaust. And if I blow here, it's wide open. Now, if I apply vacuum with this vacuum pump, so we're at about 15 inches of mercury, You can see it's blocked right off, and then I release the vacuum, it's open. So this is good. Okay, we've buttoned everything up and the bike is working fine. Here I'm checking for leaking fuel, and I'm burping air bubbles from the cooling system by running the engine with the radiator cap off. This is safe to do if you're careful, and if you take the cap off before you start the engine, with engine cold. You run the engine until you see turbulence that shows the thermostat is open, and then watch as air bubbles come to the surface. Now the other thing you want to do is to sit on the bike and shift the balance side to side. You'll see the level drop as trapped air on the high side is released. Then put the cap back on and go for a ride. In the coming days, don't forget to recheck your cold levels here at the cap, since automatic burping may not work if there's a pinhole somewhere in the line or if the reservoir line is pinched. Thanks for watching.